So customer testing or customer acceptance, these are the biggest benefit Agile brings to us testers and QAs. But are they? Or are they the biggest challenge we have to solve to succeed? I think it's a both. But at first, let's define our goal. Given that quality is satisfaction and happiness of everybody who matters, and Agile is continuous stream of value in sustainable pace, when customer matters, then our goal is continuous and sustainable customer satisfaction and happiness. And that's quite challenging goal, and that's why the first thing, if we want to make somebody happy, we at first have to understand who they are. So that's why we have to identify people or group of people on the customer side. And it often starts like that. It's empty. We have some idea, there is some customer, but that's all. Then the next step is that we identify some crowds, like big group of people with general names, management, analysts, end users, but that's still too general. We cannot measure and we cannot achieve satisfaction on that level, so that's why the next step is very crucial. We have to divide these bigger groups to smaller, which we are used to call personas. And persona is an abstraction that represents a group of the people who think the similar way, who are motivated in the similar way, and we can group them. And sometimes we even have to go to the level of individuals. But this is very dangerous thing, because it costs a lot of time, because there will be many, many individuals, so personas are the key to succeed. But once we identify them, the second step is we have to understand them. And this is the, let's say, testing activity. We have to prove that our personas are well defined. And how to do it? The easiest way is to have some set of questions you ask to some representatives, to a lot of representatives of that persona. And every company is different, so there will be different questions, but some of them cannot be missing. They are, let's say, mandatory. And these are things like that. What makes you happy? What makes you sad? How does your day, week, quarter, whatever look like? Why are you involved on the project? How would you describe success and fail of this project? Can you imagine your responsibilities? And finally, the important one for us, how would you define quality? And when you go through these questions, and most of the people answer in a similar way, then you have well-defined persona. But if there are bigger differences, somebody's saying that, somebody's saying that, then you should split that persona to two, because you are dealing with a different people. So now we understand who are our customers. So we can think about how to make them happy at the end. I said at the end, but that's wrong, because we are now all agile, so it should be about continuous satisfaction. And that's a big mind switch, especially for our customers, because they are not used to it. That's why I would like to take you through 4 typical phases of such mind switch, or let's say, agile transformation, if you wish. So the first one is waterfall. That's probably very rare for all of us, but it nicely defines these activities: planning, development, testing, UAT, which we will have an agile project. But the problem is that there are not activities, there are phases. And from a customer point of view, it looks like that. Yeah, I am interested in planning at the start. It will be probably long, intensive, and so on. But then I don't care. I don't care about development, about testing. I just expect that at the end it will be delivered. And that's a huge expectation. And it's very hard to meet. So that's why Agile is so powerful. But next phase, let's call it in transformation, because this is how it looks from perspective of customer. They are still interested in planning, and then they know, yeah, there are some sprints, something is happening, but their feeling is it's not for them. It's for a delivery side, and I don't need to be involved. And this is quite a tough situation, because you can do as good things as possible, but if your customer is not involved, you cannot call it Agile. So that's why next phase, it's called learning Agile. And now your customer knows that there are these iterations. They are interested. There is a planning at the start. There is the demo. But on some level, they are still not sure what is expected from them, how they could be involved. So it's a learning phase. And it's also a learning phase for us, because we sometimes don't know how to be involved properly on Agile development. But now you have a chance that there will be no big surprises at the end. And this leads us to the last phase, called being Agile. And the biggest difference here is that you can see that that red thing at the end, the UAT, is now distributed to each sprint. So, customer is continuously accepting. It is pretty well working model, but there is one problem with that. If they are accepting after the sprint, it means that if they found something, if they want some change, we are already committed to the different iteration. So we can do something about it in sprint N+2, and that's quite late. And that's why the ultimate goal looks like this. The UAT is continuous inside the iteration, and that's very challenging. But by the end, everything is already accepted by customer. And I mean by customer, not by product owner, by real customers. And to be honest, I have never experienced that using Scrum or using iterative approach. I experienced that using a Kanban, but that should be really our goal, even when doing a sprint, to do as most of UAT inside the sprint itself. So now we understand the mind switch, the situation where the customer is, and the question is how, as QAs, we can help. And we have to understand that this is new for them. So their feeling could be like my son here. This was his first day in the school, so you can see it on his face. Yeah, he was excited, but also a bit scared, nervous, and so on. And that's totally fine. And we have to deal with that. And also, when things are new, we cannot expect it will work for the first time. So this is my daughter trying to eat a yogurt. And it didn't work for the first time. But my role as a parent is not to do that instead of her. It's about teaching, about being a good parent, and that should be our relationship with customers, about acceptance and testing. And there are 4 main areas where we can help, with planning, with acceptance, with measuring satisfaction, and with educating our customers. And when we talk about the planning, once Eisenhower said that when preparing for a battle, plans are useless, but planning is the important thing. And there are different levels of planning on every Agile project. And we have to involve customer to each of them, and we have to make them understand. So the first level is a project. And that's quite a long period of the time, very high abstraction, but a lot of planning needs to happen here. We have to have a vision. Customer needs to understand that we should go to do the most important things at first, and they should set the priorities, but also some milestones, like kickoff, UAT, whatever integration, and so on, because these things are still in Agile. But then we go to the lower level, to releases. And releases are very important. And I would say you cannot succeed without releases, because they are very different from iteration. It's a longer period of time, and it's not about commitment. It's about possibilities, it's about some high-level topics, and each release should have a concrete topic, or more of them. And it's well aligned with epics, because epic cannot be delivered usually in one sprint, but it should fit to a release. And that's what customers has to understand, and we can help them to explain it, that they should choose the topics, that this release will be for that, this release will be for that, and they have the idea and they can see the end, which is sooner than at the end of the entire project. But sometimes customers think that's all, and that's the big misunderstanding, because the key are iterations. And that's the pain for customers, because they usually do not understand the concept that this is a commitment, they should be on the planning, we plan, and then we don't change it. We commit to the scope, and no excuses. At the end, they can accept it, and so on. But if you cannot commit to the fact that it's a commitment, then you should probably reconsider if iterations are good, because you can do Kanban or whatever else. But the biggest selling point for customers, which we can explain to them, is that we welcome changes. And that's what our customers always wanted. But it was such pain with change requests in traditional approach, so this is really good selling point. And the second area is finally that customer acceptance. And all Agile is about quick feedback. But we have to understand that there are different levels of feedback. There is something like a demo at the end, and that's very general. And the feedback you will get from a demo, it's usually like, yeah, looks fine, or it doesn't. But it's very far from acceptance. Then you have second level, which is based on kind of random testing, random activities with things you delivered. So you will get some unstructured feedback, like flashbangs or how to call it, and that's, again, very important. But it's not a validation. It's not proper validation, and that should be our goal. And that's something customers are not used to, but we are. So we can teach them. But the tricky point and the important thing is that I said validation. It's not verification, and we should never ask our customers to do a verification instead of us. This is our responsibility, our goal. And maybe there are some exceptions, but in general, verification is for us. But also validation is for us. It should be our daily bread. We have to do a lot of validation, and it's probably the more important than verification itself, but some validation cannot be done by us. It has to be done by customers, and it's that validating that so part of the user story. The goal, how we achieve that, if it is really real, if they can imagine how to use it, and so on. And that's where they are not used to, and they are scared because that's something new, but we can help. We can explain much better what was delivered, how it was implemented, how to test it, what data use. We can help them with their data, their environment, structure, and so on. And then when they are testing, we can sit together with them, answer all of the questions, support them to get that feedback, to get that validation. And it's a huge investment. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it, because the learning curve, it's quite steep. It's not like with my daughter. We spent a lot of time before she was clean after eating, but with a customer, after first sprint, yeah, it's a pain, it's a lot of investment. After second, better. After third, yeah, everybody knows what to do. So they will learn it, and you will get a lot of benefits. The third area is about customer satisfaction. And we defined our goal as the satisfaction and happiness of our customers. So we have to measure it, we have to test it. Because that's the most important metric in testing, how satisfied are our customers. And there are many different ways how to do it, but I like satisfaction surveys. So it's a set of questions I send to all of my customers, the real people, after each sprint. And I get the answers. And because it's done regularly after each sprint, I have the context, so I understand why they are answering this way. And also I can analyze trends. And trends are more important than that feedback after one sprint. So it can look like that. That guy will answer, okay, I was happy with that, and in general, I'm fine. The second guy will say, hey, I was happy with that, but you didn't deliver this, what you promised, and that made me sad. And second said, okay, I'm fine in general, but I didn't see too much things for me in this sprint. So you have the feedback which you have to analyze, but the most important thing is that it has to trigger action. Because the worst thing you can do is to ask for feedback and then do nothing about it. That brings a huge demotivation, frustration. Next time they will not answer, and you don't get these benefits. Last area where we can help is education. And sometimes I define QA as questions and answers. It's a joke, but there is truth in that, because we have to ask a lot of good questions during the project. That's basically our work. Testing is asking questions. But also we have to provide a lot of answers. And especially for a customer, it's a good idea to be a single point of contact for them, probably together with product owner, and to answer a lot of questions about Agile, testing, product, process, data, and many others. And it could be maybe challenging for you to be the single point of contact as a tester, but it has two main benefits. The first one is that you know what customers deals with, what is not clear for them, and probably if it is not clear for a customer, it's not clear for you. And if something is not clear, it's hard to achieve that satisfaction. And the second big advantage of that is that you build a relationship with your customer. So they know they can ask you, and it's also okay to say, I don't know, because that's a valid answer. But then we can point them to somebody who knows, or we can find out the answer. So that was about how we can help. And the last thing I would like to speak about is test strategy, because that's an artifact which has very bad history. And when we hear test strategy, it's always a bad feeling about it. But if done well, it's very important, and we need it on our Agile projects. But the test strategy, it's an agreement. It's an agreement about how we approach testing, how we approach quality. So there will be topics like, testing, but also coding, also preventing defects, Agile things, and so on. So maybe it's better to call it QA strategy or quality strategy. But the important word is agreement. It means that all of these parties, so customer, developer, sponsors, whoever you identified as who matters on the product, they agree how we will approach the quality. And if it is the agreement, there is no reason to cheat. If something doesn't work, it has to be living. So we have to stop and we say, is the goal still same? If the goal is same, so what is the problem with the agreement? Do we have to change it? Do we find out another way how to achieve that goal? If yes, then change it and agree again and follow it again. And that's why this agreement has to be light enough, which is the question of tooling. And I always start with mind maps. And a mind map is the best tool for test strategy, because it provides a nice flexibility how to structure things and so on. And it doesn't have to end there. Of course, if you need to specify something in more details, you can use a Confluence, you can use some documents, whatever, but then link it back to this document, because this is nice visualization of that agreement. And that agreement on most of the projects will be huge. But the mind map, you can collapse it, you can expand it, and so on. So that's the story about customer acceptance. And at the end, just remember that there is only one question. Is everybody who matters happy? And if your customer matters, that's your most important thing to achieve as a tester, to test it and to assure that we are there. And if we are not there, find out the way how to get there. And the important is, if you are already there, think about how to keep it live, because it can change on the long projects. And also, you are a stakeholder. So we were talking about customers, that customer matters, but we also matters. So ask yourself if you are happy on the project or not, because that's a very important metric, especially for you. And if not, let's define what you can do with that. So that's all from me, and now it's time for questions.
Thank you very much, Vojtěch, for the nice presentation. So I see you got a lot of questions already. Let's start with the first one. What kind of documentation would you require from the customer as a result of their validation?
Okay, so I am a very strict person, which is my disadvantage, so I would some proof that they really accept that. And it depends what tools we are using. For some customers, it's a mind map. So we have, after each sprint, we deliver a mind map. This is the scope. We need your validation for these things. Then there will be some exploratory testing go from the box. And then it's just markers like good, bad, and so on. But whenever they put something bad there, I want them to go to me and to discuss. And also, if everything is green, I will go and ask them, hey, really? You didn't find anything after the sprint? Something is wrong. So, yes, some proof. It could be also in Jira or some document or story or whatever. But I need some proof that I can trust that we really did it, or they really did it.
How do you motivate your customers to give you the valid feedback?
That's about the actions. Like if they give a feedback and something is happening, they are already motivated. And especially when you plan something what really works, so they see the change, then they are motivated. And also at the start of the project, when we do kickoff, when we discuss that, I always ask them, can you imagine some experience from past when this approach could help? If we discover it sooner, how it would look like. And all of the people have bad experience from traditional approach or even bad experience from wrong agile implementation. So if they can memorize it and they have some feelings around that, emotions are the best motivations for them.
Customer service should initiate and provide those information, probably not testers, maybe analysts, project manager.
Yeah, so all of these things which I were talking about, it's not necessarily done by us, testers or QAs, but we have to make sure that they are happening. So it depends. If most of your customers are end users and you have only few testers from a customer side, then it could be product owner, or you can split it and so on. But the important is that at the start, the guy who is closest to the customer representatives explain it. So I explain the purpose of these surveys to the test team of the customer, product owner, probably to end users and so on. And then they ask. It's a habit, so they know something like that is coming. And then we analyze it together with everybody who should say something and who can plan that action.
I think you can manage one more question. How should handle a customer if his or her only question is, when will the product ready?
I would say the first, what is the product? So if they want the product, so divide it into smaller pieces. Like what is that 20% which has to be definitely in the product? Find the most important things, and that will be ready next sprint. And then what is another? And then you can work with these releases. So we have the release, which is 3 iterations or 4 iterations. For example, what do you want to see in this release? And on a high level, in this release and in this release. And breaking things to smaller, then you can answer, yeah, this will be ready here. And when you are good in estimating or sizing in story points, you can say, probably this thing will be here. And maybe this thing, oh, it will not be there. It's not feasible to deliver that in the sprint. So breaking it down.